ਚਰਨ ਕਮਲ ਗੁਰ ਆਸ਼ਮ ਦੀਆ ਦੁਖ ਸੁਖ
Hello, welcome to Introduction to the Sikhs, Lecture 12. And in this lecture, we're going to cover music and dance, rounding out our treatment of the arts. If you remember, we talked about architecture, art, literature, and film. And in particular, there'll be some overlaps with film in this lecture. I also want to preface the lecture by saying that when we talk about music and dance, a lot of the discussion will be about Punjabi music and Punjabi dance, because many of the examples we're going to look at are not inherently Sikh in terms of the nature of the community as a religious group. But of course, most Sikhs are from Punjab, and so Punjabi culture plays a very important role in their lives. So we'll start with Sikh music, and that will be essentially Sikh sacred music, and I'll give some examples of that. And then we'll turn to Punjabi music and dance, first looking at folk and popular music, and then folk and popular dance. And again, I'll use these terms fairly broadly. Where the distinction between folk and popular lies, for example, is not something I'll explore too much. So we can divide Sikh music into sacred music, which is Shabad Kirtan, sometimes spelled with a double E. And mainly it consists of singing verses from the Guru Granth Sahib, the main Sikh sacred text. But there are also other sacred texts that are used for singing Sikh music in Sikh music. Again, the words are very important, and for Sikhs, it's very important not to diverge from the actual words in the sacred text. There's another genre of Sikh music, which is not quite sacred music, but it is still distinctively Sikh, and that is a genre of heroic ballads, and this is called Tadi music. Tadi is the name of the people who sing it and the style, and I'll give you an example of that. A lot of the themes here are based on Sikh history and the struggles of the Sikh community. So let's start with Shabad Kirtan. The Guru Granth Sahib is mostly organized according to rags. Rags are musical modes in Indian classical music, arrangements of the scale. And the Guru Granth Sahib is actually interesting, I think, from a scholarly point of view, because it represents a 16th century collection and organization of rags. And surprisingly, the modern organization of rags in more mainstream Hindustani or North Indian classical music actually dates to the 19th century. So this is of historical interest in general. The singing of Kirtan, though, is not always based on the rags according to which the verses are organized. And there are also folk and popular influences in the singing. And in fact, there are also some verses or ballads in the Guru Granth Sahib which are meant to be sung in folk tunes of the time. There are actually instructions in the Guru Granth Sahib. So I'm going to play you a few clips, and the idea is to give you a sense of the range of different styles, and this is far from comprehensive, and this is one of the interesting things about the Sikh community, is how important Shabad Kirtan has become with the introduction of recorded technology. For example, cheap pre-recorded cassettes became a very big part of the Sikh community's practice starting from the 1970s. And with the internet, one can find enormous troves of Shabad Kirtan on various sites. The first example I'm going to play for you is that of Bhai Harjinder Singh, and he's also known as Bhai Harjinder Singh Srinagar Wale. Just to remind you, Bhai is literally means brother, but it's a term of respect or honor in this context. And Srinagar Wale is actually somebody from Srinagar, which is the capital of Kashmir. And this is, again, a Sikh practice sometimes to denote the place of origin to come after Singh, just as I gave you an example of Bhai Khan Singh Naba, who was associated with the town of Naba. Let's now listen to a little bit or watch a little bit of this clip. And this has this is not a live video, but it has a still of the Darbar Sahib.
Simar mana Ram naam chitare Simar mana Ram naam chitare Bas rahe hirday Gur charan pyare Bas rahe hirday Gur charan pyare Simar mana Ram naam chitare Simar mana Ram naam chitare Bas rahe hirday Gur charan pyare Bas rahe hirday Gur charan pyare.
So Bhai Arjinder Singh is probably one of the most popular Sikh singers of Shabad Kirtan, and this clip was very typical of his style, and many people find it soothing and suitable for putting them in the right frame of mind. So, for example, if you remember the three pillars of Sikh practice, Naam Japo, Kirat Karo, Vand Ke Chhako, then Naam Japo is really perhaps what is connected to this kind of singing. The next clip is by Bhai Avtar Singh Ragi, and Ragi here is somebody who sings in rag. So this is actually a generic name used by many singers of Shabad Kirtan. The group also is often called Ragi Jatha, Jatha meaning group. The style here is much more similar to 16th, 17th, maybe somewhat more modern Hindustani classical music. But again, there are some differences which to some extent revolve around not what kinds of embellishments are used, and the importance of focusing on the word rather than the tune or the artistry of the singers. I'll talk about the instruments in this clip separately. Bhai Avtar Singh is accompanied by his son, Bhai Kultar Singh, and by Bhai Swaran Singh on the tabla or jodi.
ਹੁਣ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਤੁਖਾਰੀ ਰਾਗ ਦਾ ਸੇਵਕ ਤੁਖਾਰੀ ਰਾਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਸੀ, ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਨਹੀਂ, ਫਰਕ ਹੈ। ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪੁਰਾਣੀ ਸਰੋਤ ਹੈ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਇਹ ਆਪ ਦੀ ਭੇਟਾ ਹੈ।
So that style was perhaps more somber, a little bit required more concentration perhaps than Bhai Harjinder Singh. Different people have different preferences in terms of what styles of kirtan they like to listen to. And of course, many Sikhs will listen to different styles of kirtan at different times. The next clip I'm going to play for you is Namdhari Kirtan. And here, Namdhari refers to a sect of Sikhs. I'll talk more about them in a future lecture. But Namdhari comes from Nam, and Dhari means adhering to the Nam. And you'll see that they wear white and that they have a distinctive style of turban. And again, they play in what is very much what one could call a classical North Indian style. Again, I'll say something more about the instruments a little later in this lecture. The next clip is the Akhand Kirtani Jatha. So this is actually a group, Jatha meaning group, but Akhand Kirtani Jathas are distinctive because they are very often larger groups. They are not necessarily full-time professionals. And the singing here involves several differences from what has become more the standard Kirtan style. There's a lot more participation by the congregation, by the worshippers. There's much more use of percussion and a much more dynamic rhythm. And you might see some parallels in this style with the Qawwali. In an earlier lecture, I played you a clip from Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan singing in that Qawwali style, and you can go back and compare this one.
Jump
Another difference you can see in this clip is that this is done in a very informal setting outdoors. And Kirtan can be actually sung anywhere. Sikh congregations will often get together in people's homes to sing together. And of course, there are also more formal settings in gurdwaras or even on stage. The next two clips are interesting because they represent melding of cultures, perhaps. These are both by Western converts to Sikhism, or actually probably children of Western converts. And again, I'll talk about the origins of that group in a future lecture. But the first clip is from, I think, a performance in London by Sanatam Kaur. So in this case, Sanatam Kaur is singing from the Sikh sacred text, but she's accompanied by the guitar, which is very common for Western converts to Sikhism to use the guitar as an accompaniment. It might seem like a non-traditional instrument, but one could argue that as a plucked string instrument, it's actually quite close to the rabab, which Bhai Mardana used to accompany Guru Nanak right at the birth of Sikhism. Sanatam Kaur is actually quite well known for singing in larger concert venues and singing what one might call generically New Age spiritual music. The second clip I'll play for you now is by Niranjan Kaur. So here Niranjan Kaur is singing again from the Sikh sacred text. In fact, the first verse, what's known as the Mool Mantra of the Japji Sahib, the beginning verse of the Guru Granth Sahib. And what is interesting here is that she is singing it, whereas normally the Japji Sahib would just be recited. She's innovated in terms of putting it to a tune. And again, this is something that is not unacceptable, of course. It's interesting or innovative because the Japji Sahib, like a few other verses in the Guru Granth Sahib, is not incorporated in any rag classification. The final clip that I want to play for you, Shabad Kirtan, is the title sequence of a movie called Nanak Naam Jahaz Hai. And this movie was actually released in 1969 on the 500th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak. It was enormously popular. It was perhaps the first big production in Indian movie making to feature Sikhs in a central role and to have a very strong Sikh religious theme. The story is again about good and evil and being guided by the principles of Sikhism. The title actually comes from a verse in the Guru Granth Sahib, and literally it means, O Nanak, the divine name is a vessel or ship. And the idea here, the metaphor here, is that the connecting with the divine is what enables one to cross the treacherous ocean of this worldly life.
Guru Nanak aaya, Guru Nanak aaya, suni pukar dadar dav, suni pukar dadar dav, Guru Nanak jag maag pathaya, Guru Nanak jag maag pathaya.
Okay, now we're going to look at a couple of clips of Tardis singing. As I said, these are heroic ballads. They're themes from Sikh history. And Tardi music can be sung in gurdwaras. It's the only exception to singing. So otherwise, all singing in gurdwaras has to be from the sacred text, or either the primary sacred text, the Guru Granth Sahib, or some limited secondary texts. But Tardi music is just based on historic themes from Sikh history, and often it is interspersed with storytelling. So there's a mix of singing and storytelling. So in some ways, the Tardis are very similar to one might think of as medieval minstrels in Europe, going from place to place and singing. And that mobility is reflected in the instruments that they use, which are portable, and also in the way that they sing standing up. Well, I guess standing up maybe is more related to the manner of singing in terms of the heroic nature of it. So the first Tardi Jatha is by Gurpratap Singh Padam, and I'll play you a short clip from them.
ਰਾਤ ਰਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਗੋਦ ਸਵਾ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਹੋ
So you can see from the clip that they are singing in the presence of the Guru Granth Sahib, and they're singing before a congregation. In the past, Tardis would have actually roamed from village to village, just collecting a crowd and singing in front of them. Now it's become somewhat more formalized. The second example I want to play for you is interesting because originally Tardis were all male. And I think in the 1980s, perhaps connected to the events of 1984 when the Indian government invaded the Darbar Sahib and the subsequent violence and repression that followed, there emerged several groups of women singing as Tardi Jathas. And this group is Amritsar Waliyan Bibiyan. So Amritsar is the town or city where the Darbar Sahib is located. Waliyan means from Amritsar, and Bibiyan means women, a term of respect for women in plural. So I'll play this clip for you as well. So again, one can find variations of style and mixes of storytelling and singing, and you can also find mixed gender Tardi Jathas, where men and women sing together. So now we're going to turn from Sikh music to Punjabi folk and popular music. The examples I've chosen are actually quite old, 5-6 decades old. And I've chosen these older examples partly because they represent perhaps something that is closer to folk traditions. Folk traditions have evolved tremendously in the last few decades with the influence of Bollywood and other popular media, even hip-hop from the West. But what I guess, again, the connection with the Sikh community is that many of these singers are Sikhs. So, for example, in the first clip, Surinder Kaur and Asa Singh Mastana, very famous singers from the 1960s, and they were perhaps the equivalent of rock stars in their day in Punjab. What you're going to hear is a love song, and it involves thoughts of separation and looking at the moon while being separated and making a connection through both looking at the moon. So very similar to many other love songs.
ਜਦੋਂ ਤੂੰ ਚੰਨ ਵੇਖੇਂਗੀ ਤੇ ਤੇਰੀ ਅੱਖ ਰੋਵੇਗੀ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੂੰ ਚੰਨ ਵੇਖੇਂਗੀ ਤੇ ਤੇਰੀ ਅੱਖ ਰੋਵੇਗੀ ਮੈਂ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਆਵਾਂਗਾ ਤੈਨੂੰ
The next clip I'm going to play for you is by Prakash Kaur and Surinder Kaur, and Prakash Kaur was Surinder Kaur's sister. And this clip, again, doesn't have any video. It's just a photograph of some field. This clip is interesting because it now starts to illustrate several things that I want to bring out in these clips. Some aspects of Punjabi culture. And sometimes these aspects of Punjabi culture are more Punjab-specific, but often they're typical of northern India, Pakistan, or even South Asia in general. Of course, the regional styles would be very, very different. So in this song, it's titled Mama Tetiya, and that literally it translates as mothers and daughters. So it's a song of separation. The background here is that in a traditional setting, the daughter would be married in an arranged marriage to somebody from a different village with some clan connections, but not from the immediate family. And so the bride would leave her parents and go and live with somebody that she might never have met, and live in a household. Typically, the bridegroom would be living with his parents in terms of a joint family household, which again is a very strong South Asian tradition. So this song is about the feelings. It's daughter singing with feelings of separation from her mother after marriage. The next song is another traditional song, another folk song, but this is associated with the wedding itself. And again, as in other cultures, a lot of the folk songs are associated with various aspects of daily life. Again, many of them are associated with family and separation. So perhaps stronger in the South Asian context than just the purely romantic songs.
मेरा जन ना कर सरकारी बहुते दिन
So this clip was from a Punjabi movie called Bhangra, and I'll talk about Bhangra as a dance form a little later today. The theme of the song is that the bride's friends are preparing her after the wedding for leaving the house and going with the groom and his family to the strange village. And so they're kind of consoling her about that separation, and in particular, the impending separation here is from her father that is being sung about. The next clip is from another Punjabi movie, Do Lachhiyan, and this is, I've put in quotes, a harvest song. Here you can see very much a Bollywood-style influence, though in 1959 the term Bollywood was not being used, but the film industry was based in Bombay. This is a harvest song in the sense that it's related to harvesting in a village, but of course it's completely unrealistic in terms of the multiple drums and multiple other instruments and the dancing and the interactions are very much a screen phenomenon and not a traditional village dance. Of course, we don't have many, if any, good recordings of traditional folk dances or songs from that period. The last clip I want to play for you is also a song, but there's also some dance involved, and this is again Bhangra. This is from the film Nanak Naam Jahaz Hai, and this involves what is taking place after the wedding, and the protagonists are the parents who are dancing and actually singing to each other. So this is also a romantic song, but more playful. And there are references to again to places in Punjab and Punjabi culture in this song. The dance moves also interesting. There's a mix of vigorous moves and more sinuous moves by the male lead. The male lead here is just for those of you who have some interest in Bollywood, is actually Prithviraj Kapoor. He was not a Sikh, but he played a Sikh in this movie, and he was in fact the first in a big family of Bollywood actors. His sons included Raj Kapoor, Shammi Kapoor, Shashi Kapoor, and his grandchildren, great-grandchildren have also gone on to Bollywood film careers.
फुल तेरे ने चंडीगढ़ दे सुर्खी लावें अंबाले दी नखरा तेरा अंबरसर दा ते बोली तेरी पटियाले दी नी आखर बन गई नी आखर बन गई रन वड्डे नसीबां वाले दी आखर बन गई रन वड्डे नसीबां वाले दी आखर बन गई ਲੱਕ ਤੇਰਾ ਏ ਮੁੰਦਰੀ ਵਰਗਾ ਤੇ ਕੱਦ ਮਕਈ ਦਾ ਟਾਂਡਾ ਧੌਣ ਤੇਰੀ ਨੂੰ ਪੈਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਵੇ ਜਦ ਚੁੱਕਨੀ ਏ ਭਾਂਡਾ ਕਰਤਾਰੋ ਦੀ ਅੱਖ ਮੁੰਡਿਆ ਕਰਤਾਰੋ ਦੀ ਅੱਖ ਮੁੰਡਿਆ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਇਲ ਤੇ ਆਲ ਨੇ ਆਂਡਾ ਕਰਤਾਰੋ ਦੀ ਅੱਖ ਮੁੰਡਿਆ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਇਲ ਤੇ ਆਲ ਨੇ ਆਂਡਾ ਕਰਤਾਰੋ ਦੀ ਅੱਖ ਮੁੰਡਿਆ
ਮੁੱਛਾਂ ਪੁਣੀ ਨੂੰ ਪੜੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਕੇ ਪੱਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਾਵੇ ਤਾਰੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ ਨੂੰ ਰਾਂਝਾ ਸਮਝੇ ਕਰਨ ਮਜ਼ਾਕਾਂ ਸਾਰੀ
So now we'll turn to folk and popular dance, and I'll begin with three examples of bhangra, and you can find many bhangra performances online. These are three examples where actually a well-known teacher in the US is demonstrating three different steps, and I'll just talk about them, and then we can watch the three clips sequentially. The first one, the step is called fasla, and fasla literally means crops, and I think you can see very easily some of the movements of threshing and harvesting in this step. The second clip is the step is called dhamal, and dhamal means ruckus or noise, and so this is again a very celebratory type of step, and of course a successful harvest would be a time for major celebration. The final step is fumniya, and fumniya are bracelets with some sort of jingles or percussion, and you'll see in this step the shaking of the wrists that gives the step its name. So a bhangra dance would consist of these and many other steps in quick succession, but I thought it would be nice to see it broken down a little bit.
Fasla. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Tamal. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Fumania. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
The next three examples are of gidda, and gidda is traditionally a women's dance, just as bhangra was traditionally a male dance. The first clip, the quality is not great, but it's interesting because it shows gidda as a live tradition where some young women in a small town, Rampura Phul, are practicing and just dancing with abandon, and it's just fun to watch. The next clip is a slightly more formalized clip, but again, it's young women, and in the beginning you'll see a small drum, the two-sided drum, the dholki, which was also in the end of the clip from the wedding song from the movie Bhangra. And again, I'll talk about instruments a little more shortly. Again, you can see some of the different components of Gidda dances in this clip. Gidda is often involves also a lot of storytelling, where there's where themes from domestic life and relationships are weaved into the dancing. Finally, even though I said Gidda is mostly a women's dance, there are traditions of actually male Gidda, and the final example is where women and men are both dancing Gidda. And again, along a continuum, you can see some similarities between some of the Gidda dance moves and some of the Bhangra dance moves as well.
कोरी कोरी कुंडी विच मिर्चा
Bhangra started out as a local folk dance in Punjab because it was a rural dance and because Sikhs were mostly in rural areas. Even though it's technically, I guess, a Punjabi folk dance, it became associated very much with the Sikh community, in particular the rural Sikh community. Then over time, it became actually a dance embraced by young Sikhs everywhere, in colleges in Punjab, then in clubs among the diaspora in Great Britain. And one of its most local examples in the U.S. is that university campuses which have any kind of South Asian population have now Bhangra dance teams, and they engage in competitions. Very often, Bhangra is danced not just by South Asians, not just by Sikhs, but by South Asians, and even non-South Asians will join in just because of the attractiveness of the dance form. And one thing that has become standard in Bhangra in the West is that men and women dance it together. So here's an example of the UC Berkeley team from a few years ago taking part in a regional competition. Okay, so in those clips you saw a lot of different instruments, and I tried to collect photographs of each of those instruments. But what I'm going to do is to leave it to you to match the instruments with their names. And the next slide has a list of names that go with the previous slide. I'll just go back and forth a little bit. Some of this can be tricky. There are, for example, 5 bowed-stringed instruments in the pictures, but you'll be able to match with the process of elimination. I've also collected some additional examples of music and dance, and some of these are more recent. So these you'll be able to watch on your own, but they add, I think, to just rounding out the picture of folk and popular music and dance. What distinguishes some of these is the greater influence of Bollywood over time. These are more modern examples. I'll just briefly describe each one of them. The first example is another Gidda performance. This one I wanted to also share with you just to, it's not a stage performance. It's again at a function, like the third example that of Gidda, mixed Gidda that I played for you. But the dress of the women is interesting, and also you get a little more sense of the storytelling that the women are engaged in. The next clip is just a music clip by a group known as the Safri Boys, called the Safri Boys. This is called Put Sardaran De. This Put is sons, Sardara is plural of Sardars. As I mentioned, that was a term that came to be used for Sikhs in the 18th century Misl period before Ranjit Singh. And De is just the possessive, so the sons of Sardars. And this clip comes from 1993. There's a lot of traditional elements to the music, and it's really, I think, from my perspective, it captures some of the anguish of Punjab after a decade of violence and repression. The third clip is really a very nice clip. It was released just before New Year's 2020. It celebrates the new year, but also is full of social commentary about actually inequalities of wealth, gender inequality, and some of the problems of contemporary Indian society. And I think this is very much in the Sikh tradition of of standing up for social justice. You'll see that the group is mixed, and you'll see also several different instruments being used. The next clip is from a Bollywood movie, and the clip is a song called London Tumakda. And London, of course, is the city. Tumakda is shakes or so. The song is about again it's sort of a love song, but the guy is singing to the girl and saying that when she dances, all of London moves or shakes. So. The clip there's a use of traditional instruments. It's a modern instrumentation. A lot of it captures some of the abandon of dancing at weddings. This is taking place at a wedding in England. And the other interesting feature of this clip is the use of little phrases from traditional folk songs mixed in with more modern sort of Punjabi phrases, and there's a lot of humor in this for anybody who can follow the language. And the final clip is actually the same song. It's actually a flash mob in Santa Cruz in the local Costco, and this captures, in some sense, the global reach of Bollywood and Bhangra and Punjabi folk music and dance. And it's just fun to see that cross-cultural impact and interaction. Finally, there's some, I've included some links to clips from part or recitation from the Guru Granth Sahib. There's a recitation of the Japji Sahib by Tarlochan Singh, and this is one of course, many examples that you can find. He was actually, I think, one of the earliest to make a recording, and it became quite widely available several decades ago. The next three are all recordings of the same composition from the Guru Granth Sahib. The Sukhmani Sahib is a much longer composition than the Japji Sahib. It takes over an hour to recite. The Japji Sahib would be recited first thing in the morning by devout Sikhs. The Sukhmani Sahib is recited at various occasions, particularly if somebody has passed away or in times of trouble, it's seen as the recitation of this composition is especially thought of as being beneficial to creating peace of mind. Sukhmani is often translated as Psalm of Peace. And I've given 3 examples here because you can see different styles of recitation in terms of tone, pace, and also you can see different degrees of musicality in the recitation itself.